All right, welcome to today's vodcast, and we're lucky enough to have a state championship winning football coach and content creator, Coach Vass. Coach Vass has spent over 10 years coaching, mainly in California, scheming against some of the hottest names in high school football. He recently debuted his Make Defense Great Again podcast and has a Patreon for those who are hoping and wanting to get inside his mind. I'm sure there's lots in there. As someone who's on there, I can confirm lots to look at. He can be found on Twitter at Coach Vass or at MDGA Podcast. Links to all his sites, his socials, you name it, will be provided in the description below. So I'll stop talking now, and we'll get the real coach on, and we'll get going. So welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me on. I mentioned, I don't know how many of your listeners listen to the podcast. Actually, it's funny. I was hanging out with my girlfriend last night, and I was explaining to her, when you do things like this, you produce a piece of content and you kind of just push it out in the world, and you don't know who listens. And I thought about it, like, I love the Conan O'Brien podcast, but I've never written in and been like, I love you, Conan, like, you're amazing. And so, it's cool to see some of the stats. And actually, Australia is the third or fourth most listened to. Like, I have the third or fourth most listened to listeners rather from Australia. So it goes US, Canada, England, and then Australia. So I have I've talked about this on other podcasts. I have a special place in my heart for international coaches. I know some of the stuff that you guys go through to coach this game and to play this game. We have it easy here just because, like, it's set up, like, a lot of things are set up to support the game. Mm-hmm. And it is probably, I mean, I know more kids play soccer, but, football is America's sport. And so I have a great love and affection for coaches that are abroad, where it's not the most popular sport and you don't have all the educational resources at your fingertips. I mean, I can go down the road and go to a clinic when Glazier's in town, and you don't have that ability. I mean, you may have your own clinics. And so I always have a soft spot for those European coaches and coaches in the, so I guess you would be considered the South Pacific. Is that the general? What would you say your general? Yeah. South Pacific to me is like South Asia, but, like, the Australians, I get a lot of people from Sweden and Norway, and Brazil. I love the passion, because here it's easy to be a coach. If you're teaching and you're a warm body, they'll be like, go coach, football. And you just go out there and you don't have to do as much. But the hoops that you guys have to jump through and the passion you have is amazing to me. And it inspires me. And I just love working with international coaches. So thank you so much for having me on.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. It's always good to get coaches like yourself on and hopefully grow the international game. So it is always good. So I guess we'll just start with introducing yourself, your background, and how you got to here and content creating, basically.
Well, so I was a student at the University of Miami, affectionately known as the U when we were still the U. Now we're kind of the upside down U, sad face. I was a student assistant. I parlayed that into a graduate assistant job at San Jose State University. I worked in the video and helped the secondary coaches out unofficially. I coached high school football in Northern California, Los Altos High School, then Gilroy High School, which is actually the garlic capital of the world. Funny fact. I coached the hardest thing I've ever did, and the most, maybe not rewarding, but one of the most formative experiences was I coached semi-pro football in the off season. And so I was 23, 24 years old, coaching adults, some of which were in their late 30s, who'd been playing longer than I'd been alive, and having to convince them that I could help them get better. And when you get older, your skills become more pronounced. When you're in high school, your best linebacker is usually your best blitzer. He's your best cover guy. He's your best everything. Mm. When you get a little older, the skills are more specialized. So you're really trying to fit that puzzle together. And so it was more of an NFL experience. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but in the sense where, like, you're really looking at matchups. You're really looking at, like, if this one guy can do this one thing well, we're going to use him in this specific situation, especially because it was kind of a volunteer thing. you couldn't just play your best 11 guys all the time. You had to build packages to get more people involved. I coached at Hartnell College, which is a junior college in Salinas, California. I moved to Mississippi and I coached at Millsaps College to learn the TCU system with my good friend Brandon Lechtenberg, who's been on the podcast. From there, I moved back to California and I coached a year at St. Francis High School. And then I spent 5 years at Sarah at the home of Tom Brady. Lynn Swan for your real deep coaches. David Bakhtiari plays left tackle for the Packers. I was living in the Bay Area of Silicon Valley, and it was great, but it was a rat race. I was working as an independent contractor at a startup company. So I took a job in Fresno, California. Kind of an adult move. The health insurance. I was getting a little older. I had to make stuff for retirement and some of these things. And sadly, my mom was diagnosed with cancer in September. And when she was diagnosed, I started making a list of things because I thought I was going to have to come home and take care of her. So I started making a list of things that I could do to survive and use, because I could have gotten any job, not like any job I wanted, but like I could have gone and drove for Uber. I could have, got a job at the airport or got a job with, in the school. But I wanted to help coaches. And so I created a list of things that I could try and do where I could come home, take care of my mom, work from home, be able to be here for her. Sadly, she passed away on Christmas this past year. And I was supposed to go back to California, and I went, this is my childhood home. I wanted to come back to Florida. I wanted to take over the house. I had to leave in the middle of the school year, so I couldn't just go get a teaching job. So it was like, that list of stuff that I originally was going to do is like a desperation, but like try to survive. I actually kind of fell in love with the list of things. And my whole thing, I had an epiphany, like coaches never graduate. And so I had a team that I was really close with in 2012 where like those were my kids. Like I love those kids. And as much as I love them and I do anything for them, they graduate and they go about their lives. And I talk to somebody on the team like every 6 months. And I know that they love me, and I know that like if they ever need anything, they know that I would be there for them. Mm-hmm. But like some of these coaches that I talk to almost every day. And I have these relationships that Jerry Gordon's one of my oldest friends in coaching. I've known him for 13, 14 years. And I was like, you know what? I want to coach coaches. And not that I'm some special guru that can have all this wisdom, but I can connect those people with time. Now I can dedicate my whole life to this. I can connect these coaches with the high school guys that don't have the time, that are consuming content in the car. And that's why for me, I didn't want to do, and all props to you for doing, video, but I knew it was going to be hard to get Don Brown on this. Like this would be really hard to get. Now, I didn't anticipate a quarantine happening a year ago and everybody learning how to Zoom, but like I've had Bud Foster on. It's very hard. It's much easier to get Bud Foster on the phone than it is to get him on a video call, especially he didn't have GAs to help him out anymore. He's retired. So he's got to figure this stuff out on his own. So, it was one of these things that I was just going to try to make it, and it's scary and it can be terrifying because there's no blueprint, there's no playbook, there's nobody really doing what I'm doing on the defensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. And it's cool because I'm my own boss and I get to do whatever I want when I want. The last week I took off and I'm putting my mom's house together, which you can see behind me is getting a little less crazy. But also it is scary because there is no security, but I believe in coaches, and I believe that if I can connect coaches with other coaches on an authentic level, that it'll all work itself out. And so I decided to throw myself into this, and, I can always go back and teach, but I really, really love coaches. I think it's some of the best group of people on the planet, and I wanted to be a servant for them. So I know it's a really long answer.
Yeah, that's good.
I hope we're not timed. I hope it's not like we have to stop at a certain time. Because I can be long-winded, but I know it's a long story, but I'm very protective of my image in the sense that like, I don't want to be seen as some like money grabber or trying to, you know what I mean? Like it's a weird thing in coaching because so much of it is like this free exchange of ideas and things. Now all of a sudden, I have the Patreon, but I'm spending a lot of time on it. And so at some point you have to live and you have to eat, you know what I mean? And there's a difference between exchanges and playbooks. And then there's a difference, like, I'm going to share 60 clips of Dave Aranda's defense from when he was at Wisconsin. That takes time, you know what I mean? And so it's this weird thing with coaches, and I feel bad. I wish I didn't have to charge, but it's one of these deals. It's like, this is what I've decided to do, and I gotta live. So I'm still not super comfortable with the whole thing, admittedly. Maybe I'm being a little too transparent, but I don't know. I want to help people, and I love the game, and I didn't want to have to go away from it.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be a situation where, like, I'm working, and I know that a lot of guys in Australia, this is what you do. Like, you're not a full-time coach, but I didn't want this to be a hobby anymore. I wanted to throw myself into it, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There's a ton of offensive guys that do kind of what I do. But there's very few people on the defensive side of the ball. And even those guys, like Cody Alexander, who's a great friend of mine, Cody's coaching and he's doing this stuff on the side.
Yep.
I wanted this to be my life, and I don't know. I love the guys, and I'm so thankful that there's guys like you that are wanting to get this information, or there's an audience for it, and I can't thank you enough for your support. So I appreciate you.
Don't worry, I'm sure we all appreciate the work you're putting in and the content that is coming out. So it's great.
Thank you.
So I guess moving to football.
Okay.
I guess we'll start with what is your defensive philosophy, and then how does that translate into the scheme that you're known for coaching and utilizing?
So, my defensive philosophy is tied into my personality. So, and I think we could get. I mean, I don't want to get Freud on anybody's ass, or some deep psychological thing, but growing up, I was an only child, and I know, believe me, there's a point to this. I promise you guys are probably like, are you shitting me? Who is this guy? But I'm going to go deep psychological on you. And there's a point to this, I promise. When I was a kid, I had no brothers and sisters. My mom, I never had a babysitter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was in second grade. So she dragged me everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I always was like trapped in these like terrible situations. Like take a 7-year-old to Home Depot for 6 hours. I don't know what you have in Australia, where like home repair stores, you buy wood and bathrooms.
Bunnings. And
right. What's it called?
Bunnings.
Okay, Bunnings. Imagine taking a 7-year-old to Bunnings for 5 hours.
Right. Yep.
Imagine taking a 8-year-old to buy a car for 12 hours. And so I was super ADD, so I was always bored. So when we would go to these things, I would take all this stuff with me. I promise you there's a point. Just stick with me. So when I go on trips, I'll go away for 3 days and I'll have like 2 suitcases, and people think I have outfits like I'm a woman. Like, I'm like, no, I actually have 3. I actually have 2 outfits. I'm gonna wash one, but I have 14 books and videos in my PlayStation, in case I get bored. And I always have that fear of like being bored or being stuck. And I think that, and if you did it, and the reason I said this is because a friend of mine, Nick Rapone, who's the DB's coach for the Tampa Bay Bucks, when he was at Delaware, we talked triple option and stuff, and he says, we're going to play 4-3 cover 4 70% of the time. And that's what we want to do. And we got in this conversation, and this kind of had an epiphany, a light bulb as we're talking about personality. And I was like, because he came out to San Francisco for like 4 days. And I said, Coach, what did you pack? If you don't mind me asking, how did you pack? Did you bring a suitcase? He goes, no, I brought a carry-on. I fit everything in this tiny little carry-on. And I was like, that makes sense. This guy's simple. He wants to be simple on defense. Me, I have to have, if I'm going to the doctor's office, I need to have a book. I got my phone. I got my headphones, in case I need to listen to music and read a book and look at my phone at the same time. So I never want to be stuck. So I wanted a robust defense that had answers. The easy there's two reasons why I do what I do. And we run the 4-2-5. And it's really – the TCU defense is known for the 4-2-5. That's not why it's the best defense on the planet, in my opinion. The reason it's the best defense on the planet is because of the language system, which for coaches can be hard, can be cumbersome because there's a lot of words and you got to be on. If you're a beginning coach now, I will say this. The TCU system gives you the flexibility to do really hard stuff and really advanced stuff. But you could also call tight G3 Sky, which is 4-4 cover 3. But if you build the flexibility on the front end and you teach the back 6 or the front 6 from the back 5, and then you split the defense in half for coverages, you build in the flexibility to make it super complicated if you want, and not because you want to, but because you have to defend certain things. So that's my opinion on that. There's ways that in the world of spread that you can code the words, but like for example, Alabama does this and Georgia does this, where their base 3-4 cover 3 strong rotation is called base strong 3 auto check dot mod. That's how they install it. And each word means something. Base is the front. Strong means we're rushing from the passing strength. 3 is the coverage. Auto tells them what the call is if there's twins to the weak side, what we do. Check dot mod is if it's ace with the back or behind the quarterback, we're going to do a read cover 4 deal. And that's kind of complicated. Base strong 3 auto check dot mod. That's how it's installed, and the kids learn what each word means. But then after the first week, that's BASS, like BASS, like the fish. And the reason they do that is because they play Auburn. A lot of their really wordy calls are Auburn. Well, Auburn in 21 personnel, 21 and 12, well, Auburn does their sugar huddle fire alarm stuff where they huddle right by the ball when they do their big stuff. So they couldn't call base strong 3 auto check dot mod. So they teach these long calls like whack is base weak jack 7 adjusted check slot or whatever. So they learn these long terms. They know what it means, but then they code them. And I think TCU hasn't quite done that. We've done that. But with the reason that I love the language is it also allows you to change things mid-game. But most importantly is it allows the kids to be able to memorize less stuff. We can bring 97 different blitzes, but for the most part, the 3 technique is going to know he needs to go left, and I'm going to play base technique. If I don't hear anything, I'm going to play my base technique. If I'm going to slant to the call, not to the tight end, but to the call, I'm going to hear a T word, Toro, tank. I slant left, or I line up to the left and I slant right. That's it. You could play hot coverage. You could play fire zone coverage. You could play cover 0, man free. It doesn't matter. But that's all that kid has to learn. If you one-word the defense, he's got to remember, okay, in ammo, I do this. In snake, I do this. And in this, he doesn't have to know all that shit. It's left, I go left. Or, the 3 tech's got it easy because he just goes to the call. I line up to left, I play base technique, I slant left or I slant right, or they'll have some twists, some pass rush games. So that's why I love it. It puts more on the coach. If you're coaching Nick Rapone's defense, and I love Nick, don't get me wrong, I love Nick Rapone, but you call over 4, there ain't much to do on that when you're keeping your straight in your head. But there's less memorization for what we do. The other reason, so that's why I love the system. And then the number 2 thing, and I think the most important thing for your listeners or viewers, sorry, I'm used to doing a podcast where you can't see me because I have the face for radio, is a defense, and I can't stress this enough. A defense is only as good as you know how to fix it. Can I coach a 3-4 defense? Yes. I've started working 3-4 concepts into what I do. However, in my defense, I know in the 4-2-5 quarters coverage, whether you play palms where the corner jumps the out, or you lock it where the overhang takes the out, or you play the Randa, Michigan State stuff or the deep safe, doesn't matter. I know how to fix 4-2, 4-1 quarters. That doesn't mean it's better than him. And there's a lot of things. It's been hard because the problem is that defense, the TCU stuff was really good. And that's why guys like Baylor invented the RPOs, was because they couldn't block enough people, and it was giving them problems. It's almost kind of a badge of honor in a way. And so they've taken, now there's things that you can do to still play quarters, but you got to mess with it a little bit. And so I know how to fix that defense. If I was to run a 3-4 cover 3 zone drop system, like take everything I do and make it the opposite, because we're a heavy zone match, man match team. We don't drop, because in my opinion, the hash mark never caught a pass. There's fast dudes catching passes, not landmarks on the field. I know the merit to it, and especially in today's game where the athletes are so explosive. You know, the NFL used to be zone drop, and then they started zone matching, and then they started man matching to play really tight. The problem is, whether it's true man-to-man or man-match coverage, Michael Thomas, if he wins one-on-one, everybody else has got their eyes on their dude, and you fall down, that's going for 60. So that's why it's almost come all the way full circle, where they're just like, screw it. We can't cover these guys. We're going to hope to get in lanes, do some simulated pressures. Hopefully a guy makes a bad decision. We bat a ball. It's almost come like, look, I believe that almost every defense now is bend, don't break. Remember, it used to be like bend, don't break versus like if people are not – nobody plays cover 0 anymore. Because if you do, I don't care how good you are, the game is spread out horizontally and turned everything into one-on-ones. You don't have to win every one-on-one. You just got to win one. And if you win one and somebody falls down, it's 6 points. And so that's why you don't see that stuff anymore. Nobody. There's no – I mean, even Don Brown. Don Brown's super aggressive, but he's still got a middle-of-the-field safety standing back there at 30 yards. So that is why I run the defense I run. I love the communication system. And I love the ability, because and not only so much I know how to fix it, but I know how I'm going to get attacked. I have been in the system long enough where I can see an offense, but study an offense for 6 games, and pretty much now if they add new stuff, I always tell my kids, I'm not a clairvoyant. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have that Miss Cleo looking. Maybe you didn't get that in Australia. Did you guys get Miss Cleo, the lady who used to do the?
Nah.
Okay, there was a woman in America, a Jamaican woman. And she was Miss Cleo, and she'd say, "Call me now for your free tarot reading." And you call her, and she'd read your palm, which I don't know how you do on the phone, but she was indicted because she was a fraud. Shocker. But anyway, I don't have it's kind of a dated reference, but I can't see in the future. So if they come up with something new, they come up with something new. But I can watch what a team's done in the previous 6 weeks and guess what they're going to do based on our defense, based on what they did to other teams. Like, for example, we played a team in a section final. Their number one play was I-Pro, just 2 backs and a tight end, strong side ISO. Well, our top 2 fronts had our best guy or our second best guy in the B gap. A-gap ISO is not a real good play because you're not splitting the defense in half. You can get both sides of the ball. You want to run it wide enough where you can somehow get the backside guy. Well, we practiced against that like once or twice because we knew no matter how much you like running that play, you literally can't run it. So what does every coach do against a 4-4 and 8-man front is they get into twins. And you run weak side ISO. So we practiced that, even though I-Pro strong ISO was I just got a new light installed in my house and it just goes off.
Right.
You saw that.
Yep.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna turn this light off. Turn this light on. I think it's haunted. I think my mom's pissed I changed out the fan. She's haunting me. Anyway. So, all right. So if you run just the numbers, and you looked at just data, that's why data is great, but it has to be informed decision making. We had to say, okay, we're probably going to get weak side ISO because that's what everybody does when you get your offensive coordinator 101 handbook, like how to run an offense. You get versus an 8-man front, you get into twins, try to turn them into a 4-3, and you run weak side ISO. And so that's kind of the thing that you have to anticipate what people are going to do. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I like what we do.
Lovely. Sounds good. So given that it's it's quite intricate in parts and wordy potentially. How do you go about being able to distill that down to 15 to 18-year-olds in high school, or even those semi-pro guys where you're practicing once or twice a week for a couple of hours a night? Often they may play some offense as well. How do you go about making sure it's in a digestible format for them to understand?
So, admittedly, when I coached semi-pro football, we did not I had not done the TCU stuff before. What we did was we made wristbands that told everybody what to do, because we only practiced once a week and half the guys wouldn't show up. It was crazy.
Sounds like us.
And so we had a situation where we would so I would call 43 or whatever, and if you were the tackle, it would say slant to A gap, tight, slant to A. It literally told you what to do.
Right.
Because there was no way we could have done what we wanted to do.
Yep.
Now, for high school kids, again, it's as complex or as simple as you want to make it. So what we do is on a total scale is we take we kind of give each position up front a couple words. So each position has one or two words that just talks to them. So the weak side end, take tells them the slant to the B, peek tells them the long stick to the A. Tag tells the three techniques, slant to the A. Fire tells the strong side end to slant off the hip of the tackle. And there's some rules in there. Nose, we tell them nose to the call, nuts away. And usually we do that in odd fronts. So that's mostly an odd front thing. Because in a G, we have two-man movements, two and away from the call, and then we have four-man movements, tank and army. Well, tank's really a three. We have tank and army, and all of our blitzes are based off of that. And so once you know your word, and the wristband's color-coded. So fronts are black. The interior guy, and this is TCU's thing. I didn't come up with this. The interior guys are pink. The ends are red. And then if it's both, it'll be like every other letter. Green is linebackers. And so the guys know it's compartmentalized. So in my old defense, we used to play a game, I call it Thunderdome, like the Mad Max movie, where we'd line up helmets like a formation. And we had one kid on the team that could tell you what all 11 guys did on one call, because it was called Falcon. It was a 3D. It was the NCAA blitz. It was fire zone from the field, cover three. For us now, that would be field G Army, wide dogs B, three strong jam sky drop. Well, that's the whole call, but that's not whatever. First of all, you're taking the call and you're split in half.
Yep.
So the front's going to get field G Army, wide dogs B. The back end's going to get wide dogs, three strong jam sky drop. And each word is specifically, it is talking to the wide, the field, dog. So we learn, so our blitz paths we have bullets, smokes, and dogs. Bullets is one or two backers, a smoke is one or two safeties, and a dog is a safety and a backer from the same side. So wide dogs would be the field safety and the field backer. B gap tells them to blitz the B gap, easy money. Army tells the front A away from the call. So field, we're setting the front to the left, we're slanting to the right. If I'm the three technique, I see field G. I don't even have to know where to set the front. The mic's going to tell me, because our whole thing is if we're all wrong, we're all right.
Yep.
Meaning, if we're supposed to call left and we call right, and all 11 guys go right and left, and we're all together and we screw up, we still can play a down. The problem becomes is when, you're playing cover two and the corner squats in the flat and the safety thinks he has the quarter and there's nobody on the deep ball number one. So that's our whole thing. We only let the free safety talks to the field and tells them this is the coverage. Now corners, because they can see splits, can be like, hey, can I get such and such? Like they'll ask, like, hey, can we check this? And the safety ultimately overrides. And if they screw up, I'll tell them, hey, the corner, or I'll yell stuff. I direct a lot of traffic before the snap. And then the weak side safety tells his side. And nobody makes the front call except the mic.
Right.
Because you get these kids, these overachievers, they want to help their teammates. I'm like, this is This does not help your teammate now. This is do your 111. The mic, if we all say left and he's supposed to say right, as long as we all line up together, we're fine. Mm-hmm. What we can't have is, as long as we have an end on the one side and an end on the other, we're okay. I'm still going to be like, why did you do that? Don't do that again. But ultimately, the problem is with both ends line up on the same side. So that's, we give people very specific jobs. Now, breaking down that coverage, 3 strong jam sky drop. What does that mean? Well, this would be the day 5 blitz, but 3 is cover 3. Strong tells the weak safety whatever the weak safety, whatever the free safety is supposed to usually do, you do. Well, in cover 3, the free safety's in the middle of the field. So I'm going to take his job. Drop tells the end to drop, and then the jam call tells the backer to wall number 2. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of stuff, and you guys are probably going, oh, my God, that sounds crazy. Like, how is this simple? You don't have to do this. Just because you put in the language system doesn't mean you have to run all these crazy-ass calls. What it does, though, is it gives you the flexibility where if you want to add later, you can. We can play any defense. Note that the only defense that's hard is the 3-3 stack because you're stacked, you don't always have prescribed gaps. Now, if you're always telling the ends you have the B, stack backers you have the C, that's a little different. Mm-hmm. But because it's not always declared and defined, that's where it can get a little hairy. I've also never coached the stack extensively. I'm sure if I did, I could figure out a language system for it. But like at Sarah, they ran the underfront, and I taught the guy the language system. I said, okay, draw your top 5 favorite under pressures. And I was able to put him in our language with only using words from the first 3 days. Oh, wow. And he was just blown away. So when you strip all of it away, we are playing an overfront, so a 3 and a G. Mm-hmm. We're setting it, to the tight end away from the tight end, to the field to the boundary, to the back away from the back. We'll do some stuff. We play double 1s, double 3s. We'll do some other stuff. But basically all you're doing is, do you say left or right? And then are you slanting to the call, not to the tight end, but to the call or away from the call, and who's slanting? So much of what we do is because we compartmentalize, the DNs know, like, if it's aim, field G aim, that just talks to the 2 inside guys. Because the DN doesn't know the call, he just ignores it. So a lot of it's just ignoring stuff. Let's say we're going to run that wide dogs call, right? Actually, it's actually a bad. That's actually a bad example because we'd have to give him a call. Let's say we're in one of America's favorite blitz, double 3s, blitz both backers in the A gaps, right? Mm-hmm. So for that's called outlaw, which is double 3s outside. Bullets A, so we're bringing both backers. We're telling them to go the A gap, and then let's use the 3 technique example. Well, you said outlaw, bullets A, silver, which tells the end if the back flares, he takes. Well, the 3 technique, and none of that shit talks to him. Mm. Outlaw, I'm still in a 3. He said left, I go left. It could be, I'll use one of our longer calls. Set outlaw, double goal, bullets A, 0 free. Now, I know none of you guys know what the hell I'm talking about, and that's okay, but that's kind of the point of what I'm trying to do. Or let's say, let's do one better. So set outlaw, silver, bullets A, 0 free. Mm-hmm. So that 3 technique's looking at his watch, and he doesn't know what any of that other crap means because he only knows what he needs to know. Yep. He just knows I play my technique. That's it. I don't need to know. I don't care what the coverage is going on behind me. I don't care what the other end is doing. I don't need to know that. And so where a lot of, our whole thing is do your 111th. Do your job, and if you don't see anything that talks to you, you don't worry about it. Like our corners, they don't care who's going where. They know 0 free. It means if man free, I'm playing inside leverage. Unless I get a tight split, I'll play outside and trail. Mm-hmm. That's it. I don't care. You can bring 4 guys from one side. You can bring 5 from one side. And so you as the coach, though, have to be on top of things because you have to be able to compartmentalize everything, keep everything straight in your head. And sometimes it's hard. Like if you make a mistake, you can send 2 guys into each other and, you can do some other things. This defense, I liken it to flying a fighter jet. you could do some really cool stuff in a fighter jet,
Mm-hmm.
but if you don't know what you're doing, you could crash real easy. Like if you're flying a 747, like a big ass airplane, commercial plane, and the engines go out, you got a lot of time to coast and to do some things. If you're in an F-16 and you do the wrong barrel roll, you're gonna be on the side of a mountain. And so that's where it's very coach centric, and a lot of guys are intimidated by that.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys can't think like that under pressure, and there's been times in my career where I may have felt that way. I, as a person, going back to personality types, I do thrive in those situations. As animated and as excited as I get when things get real crazy, I get really calm,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just something that I was born with. I don't know. And so I love that stuff when all the bullets are flying, the chaos, and people are freaking out. To be able to think clearly, but you get what you want. I think a lot of people, when they see this defense, get confused because they think, like going back to the analogy with the suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need all that stuff? You're just going on a 3-day trip. You don't need all that. It's not so much that you need a ton of stuff because you want to do a bunch of stuff. It's so you have a tool in your toolbox to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And most defenses, you have a list of calls. And I've interviewed some amazing coaches, and their calls are the same 5 years ago as they were this past year. I won't name names. But most coaches, they have their defense installed, and they have a board, and they look and they say, okay, what call do I have is best for the situation?
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. We start from scratch every week.
Right.
You know, as much as we love quarters, if playing a man match cover 2 deep zone, I know that's kind of a misnomer, like a man match 2 deep zone, but cover 2 where you're walling the inside guys all the way down the field. If we feel that's best, that's what we're going to do. I don't want to be in a situation. This is where I told you it would come full circle. I don't want to be that kid stuck on the floor of Home Depot. What was it called? What was the store again? Bunnings?
Yeah.
I don't want to be stuck on the floor of Bunnings, like kicking and screaming and being like, why didn't I bring my iPad? Well, I didn't have iPad. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want to be able to have a tool in my toolbox, and not just me, but I can communicate it to the players. You know, we've had little stuff where, and it enables you to make stuff up in the middle of the game. Like you can tag it like an offense. So we're playing a team. They don't release their back a lot. They run a lot of 6-man protection. And so we're bringing inside backer plugs. And the blitzes were great. We were getting home, but they were getting the ball out fast. But what's happening was they decided they found a matchup on the back. And so they were releasing the back more than we thought they were going to. And what they were doing is they were fanning out. And this is on me. I should have changed the calls. But they were sneaking their back out. Not so much swinging them, but kind of leaking them through the line, through all the trash, and sitting over the ball so when the pressure came, the quarterback could dump it. And there were just things that we didn't see on film, we didn't expect. And it was a good adjustment. Well, what happens if you don't have that language system?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to check, okay, guys, we usually call this Sparrow. Well, now in Blue Jay, we're now going to do that. We're going to vice the back and still run the same pressure. Well, okay, but then now the 3 technique, I always use him as an example because the closer you are to the ball, the less time you have to think.
Yep.
Well, Blue Jays like Sparrow. It's a bird. But wait, there's other birds that we have in our package where I do other, you know what I mean? That's memorization. Now all you do is instead of silver, which tells the end, you have the back to be flares, you add a gold call, which tells the end, I have the back no matter what. And if he steps through the line, what that tells the 3 technique is instead of penetrating in my end, I'm going to come up field and only take maybe flares. Gold in our system tells the tackle, you're going to push for contain. And if the back flares, the end will take him. If the back stacks up, it becomes his ton.
Right.
I fixed my problem by changing one word, and it talks to 2 people.
Yeah.
If I'm the Mike linebacker, I don't give a shit how you're defending back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All I care about is I got to blow my A gap. So why put something different on him when he's doing the same thing? That's what I love about the defense.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing I'll say, because everybody goes, what about the spread? What about the spread? The longer calls are usually on 3rd down, usually 3rd and long. longer calls because they're more designer pressures and stuff. Yep. I challenge you to find me an offense that goes fast on first down, gets their ass kicked, goes fast on second down and gets their ass kicked, and then still goes fast on 3rd and 9. Nobody's going fast on 3rd and 9. So that whole, you can't have long calls because of the spread, bullshit. Sorry, I don't know if I can
That's
swear?
Fine. Yep.
Okay, good. The Australians like to swear, right?
Yeah, we do.
Never fucking better. That was my New Zealand. That was my attempt at a New Zealand accent. I love Nick Cave,
right?
And his sidekicks from New Zealand,
right?
From New Zealand. So, that was my port. Please don't send me any hate tweets. I'm sorry, but so that's kind of my philosophy on that sort of thing. And you don't want to be stuck. You don't want to have guys in the heat of battle trying to memorize a bunch of new crap.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to be able to anticipate how you're going to be attacked. And so to me, that is more important than like I run the 4-2-5 because, I mean, you mentioned the state championship game. We ran the tight front and we dropped 8. I'd never dropped 8 in my career. It was our game plan. We're going to drop 8. And we played an odd front, which we never played odd unless it was 3rd down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to figure it out. I had to actually backwards to how it's supposed to be taught. But we threw out the whole game plan, which I could have been a GOAT. Like not the greatest of all time. Like I could have been just a GOAT had that not worked, but it did. And so we got, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but we made a calculated risk. We threw out our defense because basically they were the number 1 offense in the country, and they had a 6'8" receiver, about 2,000 yards receiving. And in their passing game, they released the back a lot, and their quarterback, and he started for Arizona State as a true freshman.
Right.
Their top run was quarterback scramble. And so in all of our match coverages, we're in a 4-1 box. They flare the back. You have to match it with the mic or else you're short.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got a 4-0 box and the line's coming at you. And you just step up and you're gone. And so we had to we wanted an extra guy off the ball. And we held them to 14 points. One of them was a Hail Mary. And, it was probably I probably should have retired after that. The culmination of 5 years of taking a program that was like the lovable losers, like always the second place team.
Mm-hmm.
We finished 40th in the country, and we did things out of our comfort zone, but we were able to do it because of the language system, because of the communication.
Mm-hmm.
So and if you watch TCU now, they play, I wouldn't say as much odd front, but they're playing a ton of odd front. And they play a ton of cover 3, even though Gary Patterson says he hates cover 3, and they call it everything but cover 3. Their cover 3 is like Cougar backer drop. Like it's cover 3. It's overshifted cover 3. They're playing a lot of instead of playing a 6-man box with 2 overhangs,
mm-hmm.
they're playing a lot of shoving the backers, getting a 4-3 lever setup with 1 high safety. Out of like partial odd front. So it doesn't even look like TCU's defense, but they're able to do it easier because of that language system. So that's my kind of piece on that.
Interesting. So then, given that, how long does it take to say install?
5 days.
5 days. That's it.
90%. But we now, if this was semi-pro, that's a whole different deal. I'm talking about in our world. We are also 2 platoon, meaning we have an offense and a defense, and we only shared a couple kids.
Right.
So I've only coached in a 1 platoon system. Was my first year, and we played Rob, the old G defense, Virginia Tech robber coverage, and we played cover 1. It was so simple. It was stupid. It was my first year, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I still don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I know a little bit more than I did before. So we basically, day 1, we teach the over stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically have a front family, some stunts, a blitz concept, and a coverage. So day 1 is the over fronts, the individual slants, the 2-man, the 3- and 4-man games, basically slants, no real twists or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think we do like the tackle. That's day 2. We do the tackle twist. We'll like tackle first, nose leaps around, or
yep.
We do bullets, which is backers 1 or 2, and then the coverage system. We teach our man rules, and then we teach quarters. We used to teach robber coverage, but that was in the 2-back world. I don't know how much. What do you guys see scheme wise? Is it spread or 2 backs? Should ask this to start off.
No, that's fair. It's more recently, it's more spread. Sometimes they get into that Auburn power spread stuff.
But you don't see like a fullback and a tailback with the quarterback under center, do you?
No, not unless it's like the odd occasion. They'll have something.
So it's very. So it mirrors American scheme evolution because, like, I was in a place in Northern California, is like 20 years behind, and I told you we saw, or maybe I don't know. This is my third conversation in a row, so I apologize. Oh. But we had, we played the 4-2-5, but we put our strong safety, our nickel, to the run strength, which is usually a no. You do it the back strength. And it was like a 4-3. Everybody always asks me why. It's like, well, our top 4 teams we had to beat were double wing, foot to foot, double tight, double wing, the I, like 1972 USI with OJ running the ball before he was stabbing everybody. The wing T and then wing T option, and then so a little wing T-ish, but like triple option, and then back fly. Well, I'm not going to put my guy at passing strength. That makes no sense. And so we played more 4-3 rules. We're not a true, and there's really no true 4-2-5 teams left in the sense that in the old 4-2-5, like when my mentor Keith Burns put it at USC in 1993, they called him the Bandit. It was the old, we still call him that. It's the old Lou Holtz terminology, the infamous coach used to be at Arkansas and South Carolina, where they would spin the strong safety, the nickel back on the roof and take the weak safety down and the free safety over. Nobody really does that anymore because there's so many coverages and it's so specialized. Like Gary Patterson won't do it. He won't have that guy come back.
Right.
Because also you're looking for different body types, especially like Iowa State. They play – that guy's a Sam linebacker. He is not – now they started playing with a smaller guy and they did some sub stuff, but that dude is a linebacker that's just a little bit more athletic. He's not like Alabama where that guy's like a corner. Yeah. Like Minka Fitzpatrick at Alabama, and when they were in regular personnel, he'd go play strong safety or corner because he was that athletic. So we teach that. So going back, we teach the quarter stuff. We used to teach robber. But then day 2 would be some more stunts and some more code words. So like we're going to teach the slant, but if we tag it and you get a 3-man surface, it turns into this, kind of like either or stuff. Our blitzes are smokes. So now it's a safety. And then it just modifies. So smokes is a family of safeties. It can be single smoke or double smoke. Single smoke could also be so smoke is outside contain. A stinger is I'm coming flat down the line and trying to spill the ball, which we do with our 2D zone stuff. And then we have what we call a lion, which is the end coming up the field and the safety coming underneath. Now that's more of a pass deal. If we want to do like a triple option stunt which is very rare, where we bring the safety flat down the line and then the end punches and loops, they call that a rage, but we don't really teach that anymore. So that's that family. And then we modify it. Do you want it to come from the tight end, the split end, the field, the boundary, to the back, or away from the back? So then that's where the naming convention comes in.
Right.
And then the coverage is robber. We have a cover 3 we call roll, which is our FIB check if we're playing formation the boundary. If we're playing a field base, we're making wide calls and telling our nickel to go to the field, which I don't know how I feel about that. We've gone back and forth on that. The problem is if you leave your nickel with the field, I don't know. What hash marks do you use in Australia? Do you use NFL, college, or high school hash marks?
College.
Okay, so your hash marks are 13 and the third yards apart. So we use high school, which is the field is literally split into thirds.
Right.
So formation, the boundary isn't as popular because you really restrict yourself because you've got less room to work with. But, we used to see teams that, like when I was at Sarah, offense had some people call FIB formation the boundary. Some people call FSL formation the sideline. Well, at Sarah, we had an FSL or FIB package where we would put 3 receivers clustered together, and then we would just count. If they had 2 guys, we'd throw the screen. If we had one-on-one we put our best guy to the field. We, one-on-one to the backside of 3x1, but you had the whole field to work with. And then if you were doubling that guy and had the numbers, we'd run stretch to the field or whatever. And which was fun. You create a defense. It's almost like a triple option defense. If you create a defense for that formation. What happened is, and Iowa State did this to TCU, I think it was in 2016 or 2017. West Virginia did it to Alabama famously in 2014. It's why they changed the way they ran their mint stuff. Mm-hmm. They actually used to call it base bench, and it was mint, the tight front, with the jack always to the boundary. Well, West Virginia ran their whole offense into the boundary. And so they got Minka standing to the field going, what the hell am I doing? You get your best athlete with nothing to do, and then your 260-pound DN walked out on Tavon Austin. That's not a winning business model. No. And so then you go and you say, all right, I'm going to put my nickel to the trips. Well, the problem with that then is then they just got to motion back. So it's the cat and mouse game of football. So then day 3, and then really more recently, we started going back, we put in palms, or we call it 4, 2 read in day 1, and then blue quarters day 2. It used to be better when we taught blue than halves, because then palms is just like, well, if the receiver goes out, it turns into halves. If the 2 doesn't go out, it's blue. You could teach it like that. You can't really do it anymore because that's our number one coverage. Because the problem with the quarter stuff was, the great thing about quarters is it used to be 50-50. Like you were 50% run, 50% pass, and you never been on play action because of your keys. Well, here's the problem now: is the lines run block, and then the guys are running routes. What do you do? Yeah. And so what teams did, including us, is we moved the nickel closer to the ball, and we said, "You're 75% run, deep safety. You're 75% pass." Like a division of labor. Like, okay, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. But since you move the nickel in, you can't. You have to control the bubble, or else they'll just crack you and go for a mile. So that's how we did that. And then day 3 is all of our pass rush twists. And then it is our blitzes or dogs, which is a safety and a backer from the same side. We have kind of gotten away from that because in 4 down, you have to play cover 0 unless you put like the end on the tight end, which is not great. And that's more of an odd front deal, where we run a lot. We almost exclusively run our dog stuff out of an odd front. Unless it's like a stopper call, like it's 3rd and 2 and we think they're going to run power or something, we'll say screw it and, blitz everybody. And then our coverage, that is our, we call it 5 wall, which is 2 deep man mat zone, where basically the vertical hook players are going to take 2 all the way down the field, unless one comes back inside. So it's not your cover 2 where those guys drop the 12 yards and then stand there. Right. Because cover 2 was designed, we call it cover 5. Cover 2 was designed to play against a single receiver. It was not designed for 2 receivers. That's not what you do. But people, Tampa 2 became a thing. And then day 4 is kind of it used to be our bear day. Yep. We used to put it in the 46. We don't really do that anymore, so it's kind of a review day. Last year we put in our mint package, but that's really a tight package. So that's a lot of shit to it. Yeah. So we end up doing, depending on the year and depending on the time of year. So like when we're first installing the defense in the spring, day 4 will be a review day, especially because we don't platoon in the spring because we want to see everybody play both sides, and then we'll make those calls. But when the summer rolls around or August rolls around for the fall camp, before the season, then we'll go faster because they've already seen it before. We moved our day 5 to day 4. Our day 5 is our zone pressure day. So we're teaching our ends how to play running backs and do that could be a whole another podcast or video cast in and of itself. But we're teaching our 3 deep zone pressures, our two deep 4 under zone pressures where we're putting D end on the back, our defensive lineman on the back. And we're teaching our ends to drop. We're teaching them to roll around and take backs. And then basically for the DBs, it's kind of a review day because, your 3 deep stuff is similar to how you play quarters and man free, which we also put in on day one because we do our man count stuff. Our two deep stuff we just did the day before. And then the blitzes, smokes, lions, stingers, we've already done those. So it's kind of a review there.
Yep.
And then a lot of the blitzes are like 4-man slants, like Army, Tank, we're slanting the whole 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a lot of review. So, and then from there, we go whole part whole. So we throw everything at them. They get super confused, but it enables me to they don't get bored. There's a lot of things that the kids get, but they don't get bored. And then from there, we go back and we put it all again. And then we'll put in, depending on how much 2-back we're going to see, we have a special 2-back defense called Blue Pitch. Depending on how much 10 personnel we're going to see, we'll put in a 3-down package with true 3-2-6 personnel.
Mm-hmm.
Not the tight front where you're lining up in a 3-2, but that 4th guy he's a D end.
Yep.
And then we'll put in some of our specialty stuff. We'll kind of basically go day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5 again. And we'll add little tweaks. And then, then by the 3rd week, especially in camp, we'll do our situational stuff, our victory, our 4-minute defense. We got to get the ball back.
Yep.
Some of our red zone coverages. We don't do a lot with that. Some schools do. We'll change the leverage of our safeties because in the red zone, you get a lot of corner routes.
Mm-hmm.
So usually when we play bracket, we'll bracket number 2, we'll play the nickel outside leverage and the safety inside leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Down in the red zone, we'll play more switch, which is the safeties outside.
Mm-hmm.
Because why you don't want to play in the regular field is it's hard for an inside guy. He runs to a post. It's wide open. There's nobody there. Well, the field's reduced in the red zone, so you can't. There's no post.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we'll switch the leverages. We'll teach a kind of a picket fence concept where it looks like it's 7 across. 2-minute defense. We've got a couple calls. I always put them in. We never do it. And then Hail Mary.
Yep.
Kind of put our situations in. But then that's really it. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. But what my whole philosophy is, we teach the hardest stuff first.
Right.
Which I know sounds counterintuitive, but when I studied kinesiology, my master's at San Jose State, there's block practice and there's mixed practice. And maybe there's a fancier word for it now. It's been 13 years since I did my master's. But basically, in football or any sport, if you practice, basketball is a good example. Do you play much basketball in Australia?
Yeah, it's probably the most played sport.
Luke Longley, isn't he from Australia?
He is.
There you go. But have you guys been seeing the Bulls documentary, The Last Dance? Has that been broadcasting in Australia?
Yeah, it's on Netflix here. So, but we get it a day after you guys. So it's already been, or it's on soon, the last 2 episodes for you guys. Whereas we've got to wait till tonight. So 9 more hours until it's on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's about to start here. I haven't seen last week though. But anyway, so basketball is a good one because they're very different skills. So if you teach free throws and all you do is shoot free throws, and then all you do is you do layups, you'll learn it quicker, but you won't be able to retain and perform it as well as if you at first when you're teaching the concept of free throws, you start, especially with young kids, you start and you really go through it. But then eventually you want to mix it all in.
Yeah.
And in football, what's interesting is, so the theory is, it's called the paradox of practice, where if you block practice, so you work on one skill for a long time until you master it, you'll learn it quicker than you will if you mix it up, but you won't be able to remember and how to perform it under pressure.
Right.
Later on. So there's a trust in the process. Our defense the first week looks like a clown show. Everybody's running around, everybody's yelling at each other, and and I'm just be patient. And when you have years and years of experience, you know what it's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. And so we teach, we teach quarters, palms, cover 2, man, all completely different concepts. Palms, not really. But 2 deep zone is different than quarters. If you're a safety, the first thing you're doing is you're learning how to flat foot read at 10 yards, and the guy's running super fast at you and how to shuffle and do all that. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, the next call, you're playing 2 deep zone. You're over the top of 1 and 2, backpedaling your ass out of there. Mm-hmm. And then, the next day you're in the middle of the field and you're just controlling hash to hash and you're having to weave and do all that stuff. But once you learn those different things, everything else is kind of an offshoot of those things. Yep. So then you could say this is like that. So I teach a lot of different hard concepts off the bat. Trust that we'll get better at as it goes. Time goes on. And then teach, okay, this is like that. This is like that. And then teach the easier stuff. And I find that to be the best way to do it. But you have to trust, and especially when I went to Clovis, the assistants had heard of all the success we had at Sarah, and they heard all these amazing things about me just because our head coach loves me and he's like my brother. Yep. And then we get there and it looks like a complete shit show. And everybody's like, nobody knows what the hell's going on. And I'm like, this is excellent. And they're all like, what are you talking about? Nobody knows what's happening. Everybody's terrified. Everybody thinks we're going to be terrible. Yep. But when you come out the other end, it's like you could see the light bulb goes off. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then nobody ever wants to play in a different defense. So it's because it's fun. It's fun to, and I'm more likely to, I usually put the most stuff in against the worst teams because it holds a captive audience. Because it's hard. Kids are smart. They have they have the internet. Used to be you could hide and not show them certain things and be like, yeah, this team's really good. Just not show them any film. But everybody's so connected now. They all know. You can't lie to them.
Yeah.
So now, if we're playing a terrible team, I'll tell them, listen, these guys are terrible. I'm not going to lie to you. But because they're terrible, I expect a flawless performance. And we set these crazy goals that are probably not attainable. And then what keeps me with my foot in their ass all week is I put a bunch of stuff in. And it gives me an excuse to yell at them and get on them to create. You kind of have to manufacture adversity. Mm-hmm. When you're a team like De La Salle and you haven't lost De La Salle High School in Concord, California, they haven't lost to a team in Northern California since 1991.
Right.
It's really hard to coach that sometimes because you're going to just destroy this team coming up. But it's not about that team. It's about a team 12 weeks from now or whatever. Well, young men don't have fully developed prefrontal cortex. They can't understand consequences and things. And so you do these abstract, guys, it's not about today, it's about 10 weeks. So I know I didn't give a shit about 10 weeks from now when I was 17. I'm like, who cares? So you want to know what? You know what I can control? Today. And if you don't learn this blitz, I'm going to kill you. So that creates that adversity. I don't know. I look at things a little differently, but that creates that adversity and it gives you an excuse to just, not that I enjoy yelling at kids, but it creates, no, maybe I do, but it creates that adversity and that anxiety where you got to be on your game no matter what.
Yep.
No matter who you're playing. And it doesn't matter about who we're playing. It's not about the scoreboard and that whole trust the process, which it's kind of been hijacked and co-opted. I don't like it because I used to say trust the process. And now, I'm hearing people's grandmothers say it. I'm like, all right, I need to find another phrase.
Yeah.
So those are some of my secrets, or what the hell you would call it. Those are some of my tips for putting a defense together.
Cool. Sounds good, and I'm sure a lot of.
I hope this has been helpful. I've talked about so much crap. I don't even know if this is good or not.
No, it's great. I'm sure a lot of people down here and across the globe will tune in and use it for sure. So quickly, we've got one last little thing. It's sort of like a hot take. Would you rather? It's only a few things. This first thing that comes to your mind, boom, this is what I'd rather, blah, blah, blah.
Can I ask qualifying questions or do I can't ask any?
You can ask some qualifying questions if it's needed.
All right.
All right. So first, you can't run the 4-2-5. You can't run your system. All right. Would you rather play solely in a 1-high system or a 2-high system?
You can't do both. You have to do 1 high, 2 high.
Yeah. You can only do one. Think like those coaches that are like, we're a 3-3 stack, 1 high. We're playing cover 3, cover 1. And then you've got those guys that try to adapt the use 4-3, where they're playing cover 2 quarters style.
I would play one high, and only, even though that's not what we do, but only because today's game is the way it is, and I think it would stop a lot of the RPOs.
Okay. Right. Next thing, would you rather be known as a highly aggressive coach who blitzes a lot, or someone who sort of just sits back and plays coverage and doesn't blitz?
Aggressive, but I would hope for some sort of middle. I'm the coach. All right, so I'll say aggressive, but then I'll say this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit what we have to do. If it's drop 9, bring 9. You know what kind of coach I am? I want to win.
Yep.
And I'm not married to any system. I'm married to winning. Like, again, I told you in the state championship game, and that's why I don't say the word never anymore, because I'll never drop 8. I'll never play this 4. There's no edges. I'm never doing that. Yeah, well, in the biggest game of my life, I decided to do both of them, and it worked. So I don't anymore. I don't dismiss anything. Seriously, that's one of my message to young coaches is learn everything that you can. Don't try everything that you can, because you can't have a system. Learn a system that you like. Try to learn it as best as you can, and then kind of incorporate things when you're smart enough to understand. Because it was like in school when I remember in English class, I would have bad punctuation or whatever, and the teacher would dock me. I'm like, you made us read Emily Dickinson. She doesn't even use punctuation. And they're like, yeah, well, you got to learn the rules before you know what. You got to learn the rules so you know which ones to break.
That's fair.
And so once you get to that comfort level, like for a while I was like, WWGPD, what would Gary Patterson do? I'm not smart enough to know. Now I feel the comfort level I can create my own thing. But, there's a fine line between learning stuff and doing too much. And so don't close yourself off from learning, but don't think have a foundation. Sorry, I know that's a long answer.
No,
that's
good. Okay, so you've got your 4 or 5 days to prepare for an opponent. What would you least like to see or prepare against? The flex bone triple option or that pure air raid? Like, what's more difficult to defend in your system, given you've only got 4 days?
I think in any system, I don't think it's related to the system. I think the flex bone's harder. Well, so here's a couple qualifying questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get to run whatever defense I want?
Well, yeah, okay. You're running your system, so if you're running however you adjust your 4-2, go nuts.
Okay, can you cut in Australia, like in the open field?
Yes and no. We can, but they're trying to reduce it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more like
So the flex bone is exponentially harder to defend when you can cut in the open field. I would say the flex. Now, I've had great success versus the flex bone. We shut out a flex bone. That's how I got my job at Sayre. We shut them out, and they ran the flex bone and the double wing. 2 of the hardest offenses to prepare against. And we were like 4-5, and they were 8-1. On their senior day, we just destroyed them.
Yeah.
I've never lost to the flex bone, but I would say the flex bone only because in today's game, I'd rather see the air raid.
Mm-hmm.
Only because there's a lot more air raid teams than flex bone teams. And I can do goofy shit versus the air raid and live to tell a story. You start doing goofy shit versus the flex bone, they're going to make your ass pay. And tying into your other question, are you the guy that likes to sit back and attack, react, or react, attack? I'm a very let's force the issue kind of coach. Not always necessarily blitzing, but like let's stem, let's move, let's bluff looks. You can't do that shit, Bristol. You can, but you got to be careful. They'll get you by the ass. So I would much rather see the air raid. And, I mean, last year, 6 out of the 10 teams we played, 7 out of 10 teams have air raid-based passing games. I used to see that. I've always – so here's another thing. I have always been on the other side of the ball. I've always been with an air raid offense on my teams except for 1 year. We ran the West Coast offense at Millsaps. 12 personnel, 21 personnel. But every other time, it's either been air raid or 4 and 5 wide. So I've seen it every day for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
Even in semi-pro, we ran the air raid.
Right.
So, except we ran the option 1 year, which was a disaster. But That's what you get when you run the option. I mean, don't run the option if you're a semi-pro team, because you can't. I don't think you can do it once a week like the flex bone. I bet there's no way. I don't know. Maybe people do it. Maybe I don't
know. Okay, so you're now a head coach.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that comes with a lot. You're a head coach, and you have to. You're wanting to decide what kind of offense you want to run. Do you want
your question last week? Okay.
That's fine. Do you want?
No. I got my answer already. I want to hear the rest of your question, but I got my answer.
All right. So there's two parts to it. Firstly, do you want to be in the gun? Do you want your offense to be in the gun or under center? What do you think is sort of matches your
in the gun?
In the gun. Okay. And then what offense do you want your OC to run?
So I'm going to give you this. It's not a smart ass answer, but it's actually the real answer.
Yep.
The real answer would be, I don't want to fucking coach offense. So I'm going to find the best offensive coach that I can get, and I'm going to let him do his thing. That's my honest answer if I'm a head coach.
Yep.
If I'm at a smaller school and I can't find anybody and I got to kind of do both, I'm going to run what we ran at Sarah. I'm going to run the 10 personnel, 11 personnel spread like everybody in America does.
Mm-hmm.
We were a little bit ahead of the curve. So my light just went out again. I'm telling you, man, I'm just going to be the rest of the interview with the light out. So it's like Blair Witch Project. But so I would do that, and then 20% of our offense would be the double tight, double wing. And here's why.
Okay.
The double tight done, and it's going to piss some offensive coaches off. And the last interview I did was for an offensive show. It's going to piss some people off, but when you're in the air raid and you're in the spread, there's a certain toughness that you can't get that you can get with the double wing because you are foot to foot,
mm-hmm.
and you are just teeing off on people. And there's another thing, and I don't know how it is in Australia, but in America in high school, there's something, and there's different variations. There's the same, or I would run, I'm going to say 1A, the double wing, because I know the double wing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about it that psychologically freaks people out. And if I had more time, I would also look at running the single wing. Rick Darlington, who coached at Apopka High School in Apopka, Florida, and he's now Enterprise High School.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't think we have the athletes to run, it depends on how good my athletes are. The better my athletes are, the more simple my air raid or my double wing package is going to be. Mm-hmm. If we were kind of athletic, we had some stronger country kids, I would maybe go 30% more. And I would do, and like we had a really good quarterback, I would do the single wing so he's running the ball,
mm-hmm.
because you can get more misdirection and stuff that you can't get in the double wing.
Right.
But there's something about the double wing because you got 5 gaps on either side when you line up, and then they pull the guard, they pull the tackle, or some sort of combination of 2 linemen between the guard, tackle, and tight end. The fullback goes, the quarterback leads through, and the back comes. By the end of it, you have to start with 5 gaps on either side and 4 vertical threats. Not that they're going to run 4 verts out of the double wing, but you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to get 9 guys to one side, and you have to be able to have enough guys off the ball, enough guys on the ball that they just can't cave you down,
yep.
but enough guys off the ball where you can get enough hats to the party. But there's just some about getting that foot-to-foot double team, and it's simple. The way we ran the double wing with Sarah was everybody blocked down and just create a windshield wiper effect. Block down, kick out, lead through, kill. And we were in the state championship game that we talked about. It's 14-14 coming out of half. 14-7, they scored. It's 14-14. They go a 99-yard drive. Our 4 out of our 5 starting offensive linemen were out. Our quarterback we didn't know. He passed the concussion test. I don't know how, but he was like in la la land. He had broken ribs. He had to go to the hospital. They didn't tell us about that night. And we lined up in the double wing, and our right guard blocks down, whiffs. Our left guard pulls around and leads up, doesn't block a soul, and we get 9 yards. And their double wing plan, because it's like triple option. It better be on point.
Mm-hmm.
And their game plan wasn't really on point. I hate to say this about other coaches, but their game plan was just not very good.
Mm-hmm.
We scored 24 unanswered points, and we were a spread team. And I think we threw 3 passes in the second half, and we just bludgeoned them to death. And they were way better athletes than us. I mean, they had Pac-12 guys crawling around. Our only Pac-12 guy blew his Achilles out in the first playoff game.
Right.
So, I mean, we just bludgeoned them, and and the other cool thing about it, especially when you're platoon and you have an offense and a defense, is we treated it as a special team.
Right.
So everybody came together, and we didn't, because on offense we're 10 personnel. We didn't really do any 11 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we had fast little receivers, and then all those linebacker, fullback, DN bodies go to defense. You get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Now, corners where you got to kind of share some receivers or some of that stuff. But, you know, we had a fullback that was our nose tackle one year. We had a fullback who was a DN. We had a fullback who was a linebacker. I mean, it gives you – it's almost like special teams where you're trying out for certain spots.
Mm-hmm.
And the wings can be running backs. They could be receivers. It doesn't matter. And it just creates this – when you have a team that can easily fracture when you get offense and defense, especially if one side of the ball is better than the other,
mm-hmm.
you come together, everybody's together, not a single person is not there for 15 minutes. And really, we only practiced at the beginning, we practiced 20 minutes a day, and then we got down by the end of the season, it was only 10 minutes a day.
Right.
So that's if I had to do something and I had to choose and I couldn't find some offensive Svengali to come help me, that was what I would do.
Right. Good. Interesting. Well, that's the options. So thank you for giving your thoughts on those ones.
Absolutely.
And I think that'll about do us. So again, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Guys, if you didn't hear earlier, every link to his socials, his websites, all his content will be in the description below. If you like more of this stuff, make sure you give it a like, subscribe, click the bell, share it around, and we'll see you again another time. Thank you.